Look at the Indian flag. You see three bands of color, saffron, white, and green, and a blue wheel in the center. It looks inevitable, right? Like it was always meant to be there. But what if I told you that for 40 years the symbol in the center wasn't a wheel at all? It was a machine, a literal mechanical device that Mahatma Gandhi was obsessed with. And the person who eventually swapped that machine for the wheel wasn't a politician. It was a woman whose name has been almost entirely erased from the history books. And what if I told you that the national emblem, those four majestic lions you see on every rupee note and passport, was hidden underground for 2,000 years? It wasn't found in a palace. It was dug up from the mud by a British civil engineer who was looking for something else entirely. These symbols didn't just appear out of thin air. They were excavated, argued over, and redesigned in the middle of the night. And the anthem, Jana Gana Mana, there is a conspiracy theory that has haunted it for a century, a rumor that it wasn't written for India at all, but as a sycophantic poem to praise the King of England. Is it true? Or is the actual story involving an Irish woman in a small college town in Andhra Pradesh even stranger? These symbols, the flag, the emblem, and the anthem, are the user interface of a civilization. They are the icons you click on to understand a billion people. But their origin stories are full of arguments, buried treasures, and a desperate search for identity in the chaos of 1947. Today, we decode the symbols. Stick around. Act 1. The War of the Flags. To understand the flag, we have to go back to a time when India had no flag. For thousands of years, there were flags of kings, the Dwaja, with their own symbols like the Garba, or eagle, or Hanuman, but there was no flag of India. When the British took over, they imposed the Union Jack. So when the freedom struggle started, the first thing they needed was a logo, and man, did they struggle to find one. The first attempt in 1906, raised in Calcutta, was busy. It was a graphic designer's nightmare. It had 3 stripes, green, yellow, and red. It had 8 half-open lotus flowers representing the 8 provinces. It had a sun. It had a moon. It even had the words Vande Mataram written right on it. It was less of a flag and more of a pamphlet. Then came the Home Rule flag in 1917. This one was even weirder. It had red and green stripes, the 7 stars of the Saptarishi constellation, and in the top corner, the Union Jack. It was a confused flag for a confused movement that still wanted to be part of the British Empire. It didn't work. The people needed something that screamed freedom, not compromise. Enter a man named Pingali Venkaya. He was a geologist, an agriculturalist, and a polymath from Andhra Pradesh. In 1916, he published a book with 30 different designs for an Indian flag. He was obsessed. He tracked Gandhi down and pitched his ideas. Gandhi liked one thing, simplicity. But Gandhi had a condition. He wanted his movement's symbol on it, the charkha, the spinning wheel. For Gandhi, the charkha wasn't just a tool. It was a weapon. It represented economic self-reliance. It meant making your own cloth, khadi, instead of buying British goods. It was the symbol of the poor. So in 1931, the Swaraj flag was adopted. Saffron, white, green, with a giant blue spinning wheel in the center. This was the flag that people died holding. This was the flag of the revolution. But then came 1947. Independence was weeks away. A committee was formed to finalize the flag for the new state, and they realized a problem. The charkha is asymmetrical. It looks different from the front and the back. On a flag, a machine looks clunky. It's hard to draw. It's hard to manufacture. They needed a fix. This is where the history books usually go silent. But recent research has uncovered a hidden figure. Surya Tayabji. She was an artist and the wife of Badruddin Tayyabji, a civil servant in the Prime Minister's office. While the committee was arguing, it was Suraya who created the final graphic design. She replaced the complex spinning wheel with something simpler, something ancient. She replaced the charka, the machine, with the Ashoka chakra, the wheel of law. It had 24 spokes. It was symmetrical. It was the wheel of the greatest emperor in Indian history, Ashoka. It represented motion and dharma. Suraya Tayyabji oversaw the sewing of the very first flag that flew on Nehru's car on the night of independence. Yet for decades, her contribution was forgotten. And the colors? Originally, they were communal, red for Hindus, green for Muslims, white for everyone else. But by 1947, the leaders realized that defining a nation by religion was a recipe for disaster. So they retconned the meaning. Saffron became courage and sacrifice. White became truth and peace. Green became fertility and growth. They secularized the spectrum. Act 2. The Buried Lions. Now look at your money. Look at your passport. You see the state emblem of India. 4 Asiatic lions standing back to back, roaring at the 4 cardinal directions. They stand on a circular abacus which rests on an inverted lotus. It radiates power. It looks like it has been the symbol of India forever. But 150 years ago, no one knew it existed. In 1905, a British civil engineer named F.O. Ertl was excavating a site in Sarnath near Varanasi. He wasn't looking for a national symbol, he was digging through the ruins of a Buddhist stupa. Sarnath is where the Buddha gave his first sermon. Ertl dug deep, and then he hit stone, highly polished, glimmering sandstone. He pulled out a massive capital, 7 feet tall. It was broken from its shaft, but the top was intact. 4 lions, perfect, realistic, terrifyingly majestic. It was the lion capital of Ashoka, carved around 250 BCE. It had been buried in the mud for centuries, hiding from invaders, hiding from time. Why lions? And why Ashoka? Ashoka is the most fascinating figure in Indian history. He started as a brutal conqueror. He killed his brothers to get the throne. He waged a war against the kingdom of Kalinga so bloody that the river Dayus turned red. But then, he broke. He looked at the pile of bodies and had a nervous breakdown. He converted to Buddhism and renounced war. He decided to conquer the world not with the sword, but with dharma, righteousness. He erected these pillars all over the subcontinent to broadcast his new laws. The 4 lions represent power, yes, courage, confidence, and pride, but they are guarding the Dharma chakra, the wheel beneath them. It is power submitted to the law, power submitted to peace. When Nehru and the founders were looking for an emblem for the new republic, they had choices. They could have chosen a weapon, they could have chosen a religious idol, but they chose the lions of Ashoka. Why? Because they wanted the new India to be like Ashoka, powerful but peaceful, a state that protects, not conquers. But look closer at the abacus, the platform the lions stand on. There are 4 running animals carved there: a horse, a bull, an elephant, and a lion. These aren't random zoo animals, they are the biography of the Buddha. The elephant represents his conception. His mother dreamt of a white elephant. The bull represents his youth as a prince. Taurus, zodiac symbol of virility. The horse represents the great departure, when he left his palace on his horse Kantaka to find the truth. And the lion? That's the Buddha himself, the lion of the Shakyas, preaching his wisdom to the world. So the secular emblem of India is actually a coded biography of the Buddha. And below the sculpture, there is a motto, Satyameva Jayate. This is the only part of the emblem that isn't from Ashoka. It's text, and it comes from the Mandaka Upanishad. an ancient philosophical text composed around 600 BCE. It translates to "Truth alone triumphs." But who picked it? It was Pandit Madan Man Malaviya. In 1918, while presiding over the Congress session, he plucked this phrase from the ancient texts and turned it into a slogan for the freedom struggle. He realized that against the British Empire's might, Indians had only one weapon: truth. By combining the Buddhist sculpture with the Upanishadic verse, they created a symbol that bridged the two greatest intellectual traditions of ancient India, Act 3, the anthem and the accusation. Now, the sound, the national anthem, Jana Gana Mana. It takes 52 seconds to sing. It was written by Rabindranath Tagore, the first Asian to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. It's a beautiful hymn, but for over 100 years it has been haunted by a nasty rumor. The rumor goes like this. In 1911, King George V of England visited India for the Delhi Darbar. He was the emperor. Tagore wrote this song for him, the dispenser of India's destiny, Bharat Bhagya Vidaka. The rumor says that's the king. The charioteer guiding the nation, that's the king. It makes sense on the surface. Tagore sang the song at the Congress session just a day after the king arrived. But is it true? Tagore was furious when he heard this. In 1937, he wrote a letter explicitly denying it. He said, "I should only insult myself if I cared to answer those who consider me capable of such unbounded stupidity." He explained that the dispenser of destiny could never be a mortal king like George V. It was the eternal charioteer, the divine guide, God, who leads humanity through the ages. The song was a prayer to the universal spirit, not a salute to a British monarch. But if the lyrics were Tagore's, where did the tune come from? This is the best part. It happened in a small town called Madanapalli in Andhra Pradesh. In 1919, Tagore was visiting the Besant Theosophical College. One evening, he sang the poem. The college principal's wife, Margaret Cousins, an Irish musician, was mesmerized. She asked him to translate it. They sat together, Tagore explaining the mood and Margaret playing the piano. Together, they composed the melody we sing today, an Indian poet and an Irish woman, creating the sound of a nation. So why did the Constituent Assembly choose it? Why not the other massive contender, Vande Mataram? Vande Mataram was the battle cry of the freedom movement. It was the song revolutionaries sang while being hanged. It had the street cred, but it had a problem. Vande Mataram personifies the nation as a goddess, Durga. It uses imagery of idol worship. For a secular state with a large Muslim, Christian, and Sikh population, forcing everyone to bow to a goddess was tricky. It was a religious hymn. Jana Gana Mana, on the other hand, was purely descriptive. Read the lyrics. It's a map. Punjab, Sindh, Gujarat, Maratha, Dravida, Utkala, Banga. It lists the regions of India. It acknowledges the diversity. It praises a universal God. It was inclusive. It was the perfect anthem for a union of states. It didn't ask you to worship a deity. It asked you to recognize the geography and the unity of the people. It was a victory of federalism over theology. Act 4. The Currency and the Calendar. There is one more symbol we touch every day, the currency, the rupee. The word rupee comes from the Sanskrit rupyakam, meaning wrought silver. But the symbol, the rupee sign, that's new. For decades we just used RS. But in 2010, India wanted a global symbol, like the dollar, S sign, or the euro, E sign. They held a contest. The winner was D. Udaya Kumar, and his design is a masterpiece of the origin story concept. It looks like the Latin letter R for rupee, but it also looks like the Devanagari letter Ra for rupee. It blends the global script with the local script. But look at the top. The two horizontal lines, that's an equal sign, equals. It represents a balanced economy, but it's also the shiroreka, the horizontal line that runs across all the Devanagari words. It is the line that connects the letters. It is the thread that holds the language together. So in a single tiny symbol, you have the ancient language, the modern economy, and the global ambition. And finally, the calendar. Did you know India has its own national calendar? It's not the Gregorian one, January-February, and it's not the Vikram Samvat, used for Diwali. It's the Saka Samvat. In 1957, a committee led by the famous astrophysicist Meghnad Saha was asked to fix the calendar mess. India had 30 different calendars being used in different regions. It was chaos. Saha, being a scientist, wanted accuracy. He chose the Saka era, starting in 78 AD, because it was historically prominent and scientifically sound. But more importantly, he anchored it to the vernal equinox. The Indian New Year officially starts on March 22nd or March 21st in a leap year. Why? Because that's when the day and night are equal. It's when the Earth balances itself. The national calendar isn't based on a religion or a king, it's based on the physics of the solar system. Act 5. The synthesis. Why does all this matter? Why do we care about lions and wheels and songs? Because nations are imagined communities. We can't know 1 billion people. We can't walk every inch of the land, so we connect through symbols. When the founders of India sat down in 1947, they had a terrifying task. They had to unite 1 billion people who spoke 700 languages, worshipped different gods, and had just been torn apart by partition. They needed glue. They didn't invent new symbols. They went digging. They went back 2,000 years to Ashoka to find a symbol of peace that wasn't Hindu or Muslim, but Buddhist, a neutral ground. They went back to the Upanishads to find a motto, truth alone triumphs, that appealed to philosophy, not dogma. They took the charka, the tool of the poor, and refined it into the chakra, the wheel of time. They took a song that mapped the geography, Jana Gana Mana, instead of a song that worshipped a deity. The origin of India's symbols is the story of a civilization trying to remember its best self. It was a deliberate act of curation. They chose the lions, not the swords. They chose the wheel, not the throne. They chose to define the nation not by who they conquered, but by how they sought the truth. So we have the name and the symbols. But how does this massive machine actually run? How do you govern 1 billion people? The origin of the Indian government isn't just about the British Parliament. It goes back to ancient village republics called Sabhas and Samitis. It goes back to the Arthashastra, the oldest treatise on statecraft and spy networks in the world. Next time, we look at the origin of the system, democracy, bureaucracy, and the ancient science of ruling. That is part 8. What is your favorite national symbol? The flag, the emblem, or the anthem? Let me know in the comments. And if you learned something new about the buried lions or the flag war, hit that like button. Subscribe to keep the series going. See ya!